Hey guys, Jason here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm talking about our book club book this month was Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. Actually, I guess it was for last month. It was October. Before we get into the discussion about this, I just want to talk about kind of the plan going forward. November's book is The Only Good Indians. I just started it yesterday. I'm like not very far. I'm like 10 pages in. But yeah, so that's the one for November. If you're planning on participating, go ahead and read that, and then we'll talk about it at the beginning of December. And then you guys voted for what we were going to read in December. And I had a short list of 5 books, and I posted a poll for you guys to vote in, and got 291 votes, which is pretty good. That's a lot. I think we only got like 60 votes last month, so a lot of votes, which was great. And the one that won with 48% of the votes was The Terror by Dan Simmons. And kind of close-ish second place with 36% of the vote was Ghost Story, and then the rest didn't even crack the double digits. Yeah, so December, we are going to read The Terror. I am excited because I've been wanting to read this book for a long time. So for January, I've posted another poll on the community tab. I'll put a link in the description for that. But I got 5 books for you for January. I couldn't really think of like a worthy theme, so I just picked 5 that I have wanted to read for maybe a while, plus a couple of new ones that I haven't gotten around to yet. So Enter Night by Michael Rowe, Night Film by Marisha Pessel, Endless Night by Richard Lehman, The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, Chasing the Boogeyman by Richard Chismar. Alright, so there's the 5 books, so go ahead and vote for whichever one you want to read in January and want to talk about in the beginning of February. Now, on to the matter at hand. We've got Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. I'll just start out by saying I really, really liked this. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads or something. I'm not a huge fan of like the haunted house genre necessarily. I also haven't read that many of them, so I was optimistic going into this book, and it was better than I was expecting by like a lot. It was a perfect read for October. It was set, at least the first 2/3 of the book were set in October, like around Halloween. So basically it's a haunted house story. It's about these 4 authors. They're all horror authors. They all get together in kind of a publicity stunt type of deal to promote projects they're working on or whatever. There's this guy who runs this horror website named Eli Wainwright. He's had a lot of success doing kind of like viral marketing campaign things to promote whatever he's doing, right? So his plan is to get these 4 authors together, go to this famous haunted house and interview them. Like spend the night there, spend Halloween there with these famous horror authors, interview them, and then put the interview like live streamed on his website. And the authors agree to do this because they're hoping for the same thing. They want to, get out there and get some publicity. They've all got books coming out or whatever. So they go to this house that's, presumably haunted. None of them buy into any of that, and that's fine. But things start to happen. There's a presence in the house that kind of follows them after they leave. Then the story kind of goes from there. I'm not gonna that's kind of my spoiler-free section. And like I said, I really, really enjoyed it. It definitely takes some twists and turns. It's remarkably bloody and gory, especially in the second half. And yeah, I really liked it. Now let's get into more spoilery type of talk. I guess I should get into sort of talking about these 4 authors, and the main one is named Sam Mcgarver. He's written a handful of novels with moderate success. He's also a teacher, I think university level. He's going through a nasty breakup with his wife, and he's kind of having a little bit of writer's block. He's having a hard time like starting his next book. So he's under a lot of pressure from his publisher to, like what are you working on? What's your next book? Yada yada yada. And he kind of lies to him and says that he's working on something and it's great. He is a very interesting guy. He's got a troubling past, which is revealed through little tiny hints and clues throughout, and then eventually you do find out kind of what happened. That's great. Like, the mystery around that made me really, really invested in the character. I really wanted to know what his childhood was like and what the whole mystery was really about. And it paid off very nicely. Really enjoyed that. So Sam Mcgarver, good character. Next character, kind of the second sort of main one out of the four authors, would be T.C. Moore. She is kind of an extreme horror writer, very like punk rock, you know. Like in my head, I was thinking of like a Lisbeth Salander type of. She too has a troubled past with some events that kind of formed a lot of her worldview and the way that she approaches things in the world. That is a mystery that slowly we get to know more about why she is the way she is, and it is again very, very interesting. I think that's something that Scott Thomas does really well, is peppering in the backstory throughout the narrative rather than just like exposition dumping a bunch of crap on you. Like, he does a really good job of just like giving you little bits and pieces that you can then kind of put the puzzle together along the way, and that's very, very rewarding. That's much more rewarding than just being told kind of what happened to them. Sebastian Cole, he's like an old timer. He's like 70 years old. He's written a million books. He's super famous. He's like Stephen King. Everyone's read him. All these other authors like look up to him as like a influence, and a lot of the other authors, they read Sebastian Cole as kids, so like it was a very influential part of their lives. So they're almost like meeting their hero, which is cool. But he's just like a regular guy. And then the last author, his name's Daniel Slaughter. He is kind of like a Christian author, but a horror author. I don't really know how that works exactly, but his books are sold in like Christian bookstores and stuff. Him and T.C. Moore have kind of there's a lot of tension, but I think over time their relationship gets like bantery, and so it's kind of funny. He's kind of boring. He's not a very interesting character in the first half of the novel, and then something major happens and he becomes one of the most interesting characters, or at least one of the characters that I emotionally felt for the most. The last kind of main character, I guess, would be Wainwright. He's the guy who runs the website, the horror website, and he's arranging this whole overnight stay at this house, right? And they're staying at a house called Kill Creek, and it has a history. Stories about it being haunted. It was built a way, way long time ago, and there was a guy who lived there, and it was scandalous at the time. It's in Kansas. It was scandalous at the time because he was engaging in a relationship with a black woman, and at the time, this is like back in like 1860s or something, that was frowned upon quite a bit. And so a lynch mob came to his house in Lawrence, Kansas, and killed him and his girlfriend or whatever. That's kind of the first event that got people thinking that this house was haunted. And then years and years go by. I think there's a few owners of the house throughout. And then in the 70s or 80s, the Finch sisters move in. It's Rebecca and Rachel. One of them, Rachel, I believe, is in a wheelchair, and the other one is not. So they live there, and they put in an elevator, so there's an elevator in the house, which is really cool. Weird stuff happens, and Rachel dies, and Rebecca lives there by herself for a while, and then she dies. Yeah, and then the house is just, no one buys it. No one wants to live there, because it's creepy. In the 80s, a doctor named Malcolm Agudel wrote a book called Phantoms of the Prairie about Kill Creek, the house. And at this point, Rebecca and Rachel, I think, were both still alive. They were the ones that wanted him to write this book, and it became a bestseller. Everyone read it. It was about his stay. It was a non-fiction account of his stay there. He stayed there for a while, and it was full of haunted house stuff and all these things that allegedly happened. It's a very famous book, and Wainwright is kind of obsessed with this book. And that's kind of why he wanted to do this event here at this place. Now, I'm talking about the house a lot because it really is a character in the novel. Like, it's got its own backstory, it's got its own kind of personality, and it really has a lot of agency. It is the driving force that moves the plot forward in a lot of ways. The house itself is almost the main character of this story. I think the characters are great. I think they're all very well drawn, and I was emotionally invested. And like I said, the way that he incorporated backstory with their narratives, and like, you know, it was very, very well done. I really, really enjoyed that. One interesting thing that I noted that I thought was really quite funny. Maybe not funny, but just like ironic or whatever. In the beginning of the novel, Sam is teaching his creative writing class or whatever, and they're talking about Gothic horror. And he talks about like the things that Gothic horror needs to have in order to kind of be Gothic horror. Like, and he talks about how it's usually centered around one geographic location. That location is the main character of the story and is a driving force, and all the characters are kind of drawn into that. The Gothic fiction is about secrets, and all the characters usually have like secrets that are kept from them, and like it's set up almost in this mystery. And I thought it's really interesting because he's basically telling you what this book is, and it's in like the first like 20 pages of the book. So I thought that was like really funny. It was kind of like a meta horror like analysis of his own book. So they go to his house, they do this interview. When it's done, they kind of leave. There's some creepy stuff that happens that they're all experiencing when they're there. Like they have weird dreams. They all experience some sort of haunting of some kind. So they're eager to get out of there the next day when they're ready to go. As they're leaving, Daniel Slaughter gets the news that his daughter was killed in an accident. And that is kind of the turning point. It's like the halfway point of this. That's when this story gets crazy. So then the second half of the book is 6 months later or whatever. So that's what when I was saying that it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. It wasn't really like a 5 people go to a haunted house and this is what happens. It's like that's the first half of the book. And then the second half of the book is like something followed them and is still pursuing them and wants them to come back for some reason. I forgot to mention, in the house, attic, it's like the 3rd floor bedroom, is all boarded up. Well, bricked up. The wall, like there's a staircase that goes up, and then at the top of the staircase there's just a brick wall. So you can't get in there. And that was where Rachel, the wheelchair-bound one, lived. And so the theory is that her sister went crazy and bricked her up in there and she like starved to death or something. But no one's been in there for like 30 years or whatever. When the authors get back to their normal, where they live, their normal lives, they all start writing this story and they're like all consumed by it. We start with Sam, and he like literally he can't do anything but write. And he's so like consumed by this story that he's trying to write. He writes thousands of pages, and anytime that he like stops writing for any period of time, even for like a half hour, he starts to hallucinate and see things and see like a burning woman, which comes back into his backstory. In order to keep the hallucinations and the horrible images that he keeps seeing at bay, he has to write constantly, and he does. And then, like I said, he's got like 2,000 pages. Then he finally gets to this point in the story, and it all stops, and he can't. And it's at the brick wall, and there's a hammer, and yeah, I'm not really sure. We never get examples of any of their writing, so we don't really know exactly what they're writing, but we know kind of the gist. So then he finds out that T.C. Moore is basically writing the same story. That gets him thinking like, oh, well, something weird is going on. So he goes and visits her, and she's in a bad place. She's having visions, she's having hallucinations too. They're like, oh, well, I wonder how all the other people are doing. So they go and they see Daniel, and he's having a bad time, not only because of the story, but his relationship with his wife is suffering. His daughter died, so he's in a very, very bad place emotionally. There was one scene in this book that made me cry, and it was the scene where Daniel's like priest or pastor or whatever from his church comes over and tries to talk to him. And then like him and his wife it was like very emotional. I didn't really like see it coming. I wasn't expecting to start crying while I was reading it, but it was very emotional. And like I felt really bad for Daniel. So he's also writing the same story. They're like, oh, Sebastian Cole. They go see him. Well, it turns out he had contacted Wainwright already, like previously. And so when they see him, he had already met up with Wainwright. They had gone and contacted this Dr. Agudel, the guy who wrote the nonfiction book about Kill Creek, and they found out that he had like exaggerated what happened to sell more books. But Sebastian Cole had finished his story. None of the other authors had finished theirs because they all got stuck at the same spot. Yeah, so they all meet up and they're like, we got to go back there and figure out what's going on and stop it. And they're all convinced that whatever's behind that brick wall is the answer. We got to get up there. So they get their tools and they try to break down the wall, and it's like held up by magic. It's like very, very strong brick wall. Very strong brick wall. Can't break it down. They try for a very long time, and they finally do eventually get in there, but not before the house's influence takes hold. The way it seems to work is the house sort of comes to the various people who are in it as like the person that they most wish that they could like save or whatever, and kind of tempts them and tells them like, oh, you know, you can save me. I can come back if you do these things that I want you to do, right? So the house kind of appears to Daniel as his dead daughter. He wants it so badly that he wants it to be true, kind of thing. And the house is like, do this thing for me. And the thing that the house wants him to do is to kill everyone else, and then presumably kill himself. So yeah, so he starts killing people. First person he kills is Wainwright. He dumps him into a big well. Then he tries to kill T.C. Moore. There's a weird thing that happens. He like stabs her when she's in the basement, and then the house kind of appears to her, and is like, I can save you if you just come to me. But yeah, so then he tries to kill Sam, and he tries to kill Sebastian. So anyway, I don't want to like talk too much about the details. Assuming you guys have all read the book, so you know what happens. But as it gets through, you know, like I said, you get little bits and pieces about Sam's past. He apparently, when he was a child, killed his mom. His mom was like abusing his brother, was like choking his brother, and was probably going to kill his brother. Is my assumption. And he bashed her head in with a frying pan. And then to cover that up, so that he wouldn't get in trouble, they burned their house down. He feels a lot of guilt about that. And, you know, rightfully so. Even if he was maybe justified and it was like self-defense, he killed his mom. It screwed him up. So that was like kind of his backstory. And the house always manifested as his mom burning. T.C. Moore has kind of a similar sort of story. She had a boyfriend, he was abusive, almost killed her one night, put her in the hospital, and then she just like left him, which, you know, good for her. Never saw him again, doesn't know what's going on with him, but so when she has visions and stuff, it comes, he's there. It's also very upsetting. Sebastian, he's interesting too, because he's older, and he's afraid that he's going to go senile and start to forget things. So that's the fear that the house plays on for him, is that he like forgets things and he like can't remember the names of people that he cared about and stuff. And he had like a partner named Richard, I think, and they lived together for a long time, and Richard had died recently of cancer or something. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling. Let's get back to it. So basically, Sebastian and T.C. Moore are kind of the last ones alive. They kill Daniel. He's trying to murder them. He's under the house's influence. They kill Daniel. They burn the house down, and they escape. A couple months go by. They are both doing this interview together, and they both have books coming out or whatever. So anyway, they're doing this interview together, and it turns out that T.C. Moore is not T.C. Moore. She is like some manifestation of whatever was haunting that house. And that's like the big reveal at the end, which I kind of saw coming a little bit, mainly because, like I said earlier, when Daniel tried to kill her in the basement and she like made a bargain with the house, and then later we find her and she's alive, I was like, well, what happened? I was very confused because I thought she either was dead or that the house got her in some way, and I was right. The house got her in some way. Whatever bargain she made, it wasn't her that escaped. It was the house. It was an interesting ending. Like I said, I kind of saw something like that coming. Not exactly that, but something like that. But yeah, it was a really, really good book. Thanks for suggesting it, guys. Appreciate it. I think I'm going to stop it there, just because this has been going on for a while, and I don't want this video to be 45 minutes long. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought, because this is an interesting one. So in the comments, just tell me what you think. To reiterate, Only Good Indians, read that in November. Come join us in December for a discussion. And then The Terror by Dan Simmons. Read that in December and come join us in the beginning of January for a discussion. Go to the link down there and vote for what we're going to read in January. I'm trying to figure out ways to kind of make these things a little more interactive. Less just me talking about stuff and then you guys commenting. I'd like to talk more directly to you guys or with you guys. So I'm thinking about making a Discord server. Now I feel like I have enough subscribers that it would actually be something that would be a good thing to do. So let me know if you would be interested in that. I think I'm gonna make one, and I'll once I do, I'll maybe post links or something. I don't know. And maybe in the future, if I do that, have a channel dedicated to each book, and then we can talk about it like a little bit beforehand, and I can maybe get some feedback from you guys before I make these videos. I don't know how it's gonna go. Subscribe if you would like to stay up to date and get notified when I have new videos and stuff. Anyway, that's all I got. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.